Now I speak about evolution of design for sustainability. So we will see a little story of this design for sustainability, and even this is important to understand where what we are going to learn in this course is framed within. So it's not all, but it's part of something, even though very important. First of all, we will see that there has been, and we have seen in the course of the year, an increasing and recognized role for the designer, for you, in designing for sustainability. We will see the evolution of this design for sustainability, and at the end, I will say something about the aesthetic of sustainability, as I promised to you since the beginning, okay? My thought about that. Increasing role of design for sustainability. Well, why is this? Indeed, is you know, when we act not end of pipe at the end, when something is done, when the product is made, when the product service system is made, but I act in a preventive way. So designing it to be always to be preventive is more effective to make innovation, and so forth, even to make innovation that are sustainable. The designer, what is doing exactly this. It's not the only one, okay? There is who is dealing with research and development and other thing. The designer is there where we design product, okay? So where we decide how the product will be, how could be, how better could be in relation to the environment, if we succeed to make it even radically sustainable, okay? And there is another issue that is related to the emphasis even on the sociocultural dimension of sustainability, because when we move from, if we want radical innovation, maybe we are not used to different typology of product. Ownerless product, maybe we want to have our own car necessarily or something else, and maybe there are different models of value that are positive anyhow, but need this character shift. And who is indeed working into that? The designer has a role into that. I used to call the designer the hinge between the world of production and the end user, the creative hinge between the two. So indeed is working in relation to that. So there is a responsibility for the technical definition of the solution. So the product or the product service system or what we are designing has to be sustainable, environmentally and socioetically sustainable, than even economic. We are speaking about that, okay? So this has to be, technically it has to be, okay? And it can be measured. This has to be. But there is a role even in relation to the fact that we have to do something that is technically sustainable, but then attractive. If I have an unsustainable product on the market, I want that this is taken by something, purchased by someone, that someone has to perceive this as better than the unsustainable solution. So it has to be more attractive. And we will come to this in relation to the aesthetic of sustainability at the end. In relation to the recognition of the role of the design, I show you something that when I start lecturing many years ago, as I told to you, 29 years ago, that was not really at all in none of the book, or definitely not in a document like this, which is the EU Circular Economy Action Plan, approved by the European Commission in 2020. while COVID, and look what we read in the first pages of this action plan, where we read sustainable product policy framework, but there is designing sustainable product. This is something that when I started researching and lecturing, for me it was a dream. I was all the time saying, come on, it's correct. It's so easy to say that if you design at the beginning, as I said before, then you have more possibility to make this to be with the low environmental impact. If you think later, what you can do, you can try to make some remedial action, but not really to radically innovate, okay? Finally, this we find in the action plan of the European Commission. So no one can say anything about design or about you. Your role is recognized, okay? Full stop. And there is another thing quite important that is close to the number that I mentioned to you before there, okay? That it's at the design phase where we can reduce up to 80% the environmental impact of a product. In this case, we are speaking about product, okay? If we move the page, go to the next page, we read another thing. I'm reading it with you. Incentivizing product as a service or other model where producer keep the ownership of the product or the responsibility for its performance throughout its life cycle. Okay? Keeps the ownership and has responsibility over the performance, the services over the life cycle. Okay? This is a definition very close, as we will see, to one of the core definitions of our course, product service system, or better still, sustainable product service system, because product service system is something that you have learned in different ways. So what is a sustainable product service system? So this is even sustainable product service system are into the action plan of the European action plan for circular economy of the European Union. Do you know about this law that came out recently? Have you heard? Okay, it was July 2024. There is the first law on eco-design for sustainable product regulation. Is a framework law. Speaking about and it comes, of course, from the action plan. The action plan says something about design as a role. And then there was a work to come out with a law. This is a general law for all type of product, and then there will be different, they call delegated act. They are specific law for specific category of product, furniture, clothing, and etc. Okay? I've been working for in the technical committee for this law for 2 years for the Italian Ministry, together with another colleague of Politecnico di Torino. So we were working for the Italian ministry that then discussed in Brussels the law. So it was 2 years of refining and revising and whatever about the law, but then it came out, and this is key important. It's key important, even for you, because companies now know that there is this law, there is a plan for which first it will be textile, then it will be furniture, and other, there will be law by which they have to design product with a low environmental impact, okay? And with a digital passport, so that the information about the environmental quality are embedded in a digital way into the same product. Okay, so that is there. So that means that your role in designing, in this case, is product level, okay, but your role in designing for sustainability is definitely recognized. And here I come to the point, but what does the design community in general knows about design for sustainability? I ask you, did you have a course on design for sustainability? How you may know if no one has taught you, okay? So indeed, this is a good question. This is a Savonarola seat from the 18th century, from the 16th century. Well, it has been designed, manufactured, designed, without any concern on the environment. But if we compare the two, what happened? When we compare, we have to compare in relation to the fact that you have to be seated there. Okay? I'm sitting on the table. Could be a cardboard table. The point is that we have to consider that if that chair, because of the humidity, because the material is not resistant, it doesn't last, how much it may last? If you are not well educated, maybe half a day. If you are well educated, 1 week, 2 weeks, we can say not more, okay? They doesn't resist that much, okay? It depends how they are made, but if they are. So the point is that when we have to compare the product in relation to what is called functional unit. Who made a course on product lifecycle design knows this very well, but you may understand. I need to have a chair, you need to have a chair, you need to have a chair there, you need to have a chair to be seated over there, okay? So if the chair is broken, what happened? That chair has to be thrown away, another one has to be produced, and so on. So, okay, the cardboard seat, the environmental impact is here. The other one is low. The other one is higher. But in the function of time, this remained here for many, many years. And what happened with the other? Whoop, jump up. So a cardboard seat is one of the worst examples of a product with a low environmental impact. Okay? The point is that we don't have the knowledge to understand that we have to think in relation to, for example, the functional unit. The fact that it's not just that is a product, is material, but how it functions in time. On system level, we will speak about satisfaction unit, not functional unit, but we will come to this later. But you can say, oh, Prof, this is a bit too expensive for me. This is another case by Gispen, Zine chair. This is designed to last longer. So this is designed for disassembly. I don't know if you know disassembly. You can easily repair the part. You can change the upholster if it's ruined, or if you want to change it. If you want to recycle the material, you can disassemble different type of material that cannot be recycled together, and so on. So this is a chair that indeed has a warranty of, or an average lifespan of 12 years. Okay? So indeed, even this chair compared to the cardboard seat has a higher impact. Okay? For sure, definitely. A cardboard seat with a lower impact is recycled material, no doubt about that. But in relation to the function and time, the situation is totally different. And I want to show you so that you trust me. Here I asked Lorenzo to make a life cycle assessment. Is the methodology to assess the environmental impact of product in relation to the function. So I'm evaluating for 12 years, so there is one chair, and I can't remember how many other cardboard seats on the other side. Okay? And guess what it came out? This is the results. So the impact, this is the sum of different impact. When you make life cycle assessment, you have global warming, eutropization, acidification, even some terminology that you have seen. This is not what I'm interested to teach you now, okay? But nevertheless, to show you that the impact of that chair is 0.02 compared to the other. So the issue is here, how many persons within the design community in general knows or are able to evaluate what is environmentally sustainable, and how many could indeed correctly design and even teach. And we have an answer to that, and you get to know why we promote the Lens, or I decided together with other colleagues to promote the Lens network, and we are still continuing to work on with this. So if someone of you want to join our lab for the trainee, you may support us in diffusing open knowledge on design for sustainability. But now I'm going to tell you something about the evolution. So what happens during the year? A very short story on the effect. In the 70s, what happens? There were some seminal texts. I believe you know Victor Papanek and Thomas Maldonado. Who said no, go back to study history of design, okay? They come out with a book, The Design for the Real World, and Thomas Maldonado with La Speranza Progettuale, The Design Hope in English. I don't know if it was translated. Nevertheless, they were saying something about the responsibility of designer in relation to the social and the environmental concern, okay? Even at that age. But that was, you know, like the designer have to take this into consideration. They were not up to the operative level to say, well, if you want to do something, you have to design in this way, you have to consider the functional unit and time and this and that. You have to use life cycle assessment to understand whether this has a lower impact or not. And in system design, we will know what kind of tools we can use, all right? But the discussion started there. Then in the early 90s of the other century, the attention started to be on material, okay? First was on material, so non-toxic material, so we understood that some materials were toxic, so they were banned. There was the issue of natural material, even though this is sometimes everything could be natural, but it doesn't say that being natural is without environmental impact. It depends how you treat it. We start to speak about material that are recycled, are renewable, and biodegradable. And here, just as an example, I report an exhibition called Neolite, made by Ezio Manzini. Ezio Manzini was a former professor, now he's retired. Actually, it was I started working with him. That in that year made an exhibition about the use of recycled material in different way to produce different surfaces and so on. So that's why we call it Neolite, new stone, or we use this kind of acronym. Well, but it was from the late 90s when we start not just focusing on material, but moving a little bit more wide up to the product level. So we start speaking about life cycle design, or eco-design, as the European community mentioned. You see, they speak about eco-design, not circular design, for example. And in the document, they don't say, they say they have to be circular, but then non-toxic, material and resource intensive, and so on. So circular is something, it's good, but it's not all. So when you listen circular design, say, So you are thinking only to make something. What about energy consumption? What about resource minimization and other things? Think about the crisis of energy or other things during the war or in other period. What about those? So where are those? In circular economy, they are not their concern. Okay. So nevertheless, we start to speak about eco-design or life cycle design because and other things like biomimetrics, emotionally durable design, so on the fact even of the aesthetic of sustainability and so on, and even circular design. But indeed, the two key points that rise up as understanding in the research and then went into education and to the designer that were designed was the concept of we have to consider all the life cycle in relation to the impact. So when we produce a material, when we produce the product, when we distribute, when we use it, when we dispose it, and when we have to consider in relation to the functional unit. Think about the carbon seat and the other one, okay? And that was the time in which life cycle assessment as a methodology started to be recognized. I show you a short example. And other tools to support the generation of idea of product with low environmental impact. So this is a good news. Something is said by the European community, we are recognized, and it's available, a consolidated knowledge base and know-how, so we have tools and methods to produce product to reduce environmental impact. Then let's move a little bit later in the year, so we are in the early 2000, and that was the moment in which we start studying product service system or sustainable product service system, okay? What we are going to learn in this course, okay? The first example, one of the first examples indeed studied was the one by Xerox. Xerox, in that period, without thinking about the environment, but just for differentiation, decided to offer the copier in a different way. So I'm not selling you the copier. I keep the ownership of the copier, and you pay per page. Okay, every page that you print, you pay to me. Okay. And if something happened to the copy machine, I come there and I fix it. If at the end of the life, I take it back, and so on. Okay? But what happened when the model is this? So I introduce something that we will definitely learn in depth during the course, that if the ownership remains in the hands of the producer, is the owner interested in designing product that doesn't last long? If they remain the owner, and if they have to provide a new copy machine, they have to buy new material, produce a new copy machine, dispose the old one. These are costs, okay? So designing long-lasting product is an economic advantage for the company. But we understood, with the example that we saw before, and we will better understood in the when we will go on with the course, that this is a win-win situation. And even recycling. If they have the photocopier back, they have to collect it back. Why not to design it to reuse some component that can be used in other copy machines so that I don't have to remanufacture the component, or design for recycling so that I don't have to the cost of dealing with the waste and buying a new material. If I have a recycled material because I have well designed, I don't have the cost of buying some material, okay? So if there is a shift in the offer model, there could be an advantage in even designing low environmental impact product. And that was the case, and we started study, and the study started in that period. Since 2005, another model was studied as interesting, that was called distributed economy. What is distributed economy? We will learn even this during the course, is that, for example, we will have to produce energy a centralized coal power plant, okay, where we produce energy for a big reason and so on. Instead, we may have a solar panel over the roof of our house. So it's distributed small scale over the roof compared to a centralized big scale production system, okay? But this could be even when we produce product, could be distributed manufacturing and many other things that we will see during the lecture. This seems to be interesting because they are more locally resilient and has other advantages related to environmental and socio-ethical sustainability. Since the early 2010 then, and we will learn even this during the course, can I have your attention still a while? We are close to the end, okay? We started studying the combination of the two models, sustainable product service system and distributed economy. Here I take you an example. We are in Tanzania, Off-Grid Electric. They offer a solar home system. What is? So they offer a kit to rural people, a kit with a solar panel, with some batteries, with even some light for lighting, with a charger. Okay, they offer this. So this is distributed because the solar panel over the roof is distributed, is even renewable, so it's much better than the other in environmental. But how do they offer this? They don't sell it. They offer us SPSS, as a sustainable product service system. What we understood, if we think about rank Xerox, that means that Off-Grid is not selling the solar panel. Is offering this, and the client, it means the rural people with little money, is not paying to purchase the product, the solar panel, with money that they don't have. They are paying per use. And what happens if it breaks during the use? Since the provider offers all-inclusive, the reparation, the maintenance, and so on, there is not the risk of interruption of use. Many times when I've been in Africa, for example, I saw many cases of something that was donated to pump the water or whatever. Okay, it was donated, then it was broken, and it was there, and nothing happened because they didn't have the money to repair that. Okay? But if this is offered as an SPSS, this may have an advantage. Okay? So in this year, we started studying those issues. And this will be the first and the second, the core of this course. Now it was an introduction, just take it as it is, okay? Just as a story. You don't have to have all the... So we have a second good news, okay? After the bad news that I give you at the beginning. We know a promising model, which is win-win in economic, environmental, and socio-ethical terms, by offering SPSS and eventually combining this with the distributed economy. And since 2005, some researchers like me and others, even in the project that I mentioned to you, we started developing knowledge for designer and tool for designer to design such a product service system, eventually applied to distributed economy. Okay? So these will be tools that you will be using during the course. So we have a third good news. Okay, after all the bad news of the first part of the lecture, so I hope I make a little bit more happy, or maybe it went away, or she's there. We have a knowledge base and know-how, so we know what could be sustainable, and we have even the tools to do this. Okay. So to sum up, from the 1990, it was the knowledge was on material and resources. From 95 on product design with a low environmental impact. From 2000 on product service system, environmental and economic win-win. And later on still on systemic level, but combining environmental, economic and social dimension. So if we want to put on the graph on the sustainability dimension, we move from just environmental, then to the economic, and then even to the socio-ethical dimension. And if you look on the other axis, we move to material and resources, to product level, to system level, to upper level, to something that I introduced in the first part, okay? So this is not to say that we don't have to consider material or product, not at all, but we have to work even up to a system level. Oh, I have a bad news. The bad news, it's known. It's here. It's the fact that this knowledge is not so diffuse. It's still very marginal, the design of and the presence of product service system. You will see examples, so it's not that they don't exist. They exist, definitely, okay? But they are still very marginal. So we and you will have good news. And the other, for good news, we go back to the lens. We have a good network that works for the diffusion of design for sustainability with a specific focus on sustainable product service system and distributed economy. I come to the last slide. So here we are going to conclude, but this is something that I love a lot. So, and I think that is very important. It's important, so the aesthetic dimension, which is not just the color of a given product, but all the dimension of a product or a service that give the sensation of attractiveness in relation, and satisfaction in relation to a given product or product service system, is fundamental, so that we substitute unsustainable product or product service system with sustainable one. So to be able to give, to make not only technically sustainable product, but even aesthetically winning product, okay? But about the aesthetic of sustainability, I have still a few words to say about, so it has an essential role. But there is a risk. You may see around many times, you know, we associate, what is the color that is associated with sustainability? Green, isn't it? It's always green, even green. Not at all. There are many colors, so it's not said that, to say that the product is sustainable, you have to make it green, color with green, to show that this is not at all. This is for me so stupid and so even frustrating. We have to make it, we have so many colors. No one is saying that one color is better in technical terms than others, so there is much more freedom. And there is even other issue, like the fact of using, if we see that one product has a surface that is recycled, maybe we think that this product is better. But what is inside maybe is, there is not the problem. Maybe it's a product that is consuming lots of energy, or maybe it's so bad made and the material is very bad design that doesn't work. And then I wrote that there are some even iconic images Like I put there Panda. I use the slogan green recycled Panda product. Do you think that these are the aesthetic of sustainability? And you laugh to me. Some years ago, I see a telephone that has the shape of a whale made of recycled material so badly that it was slippering in my hand. So the most ugly telephone that I may have ever seen. And then looking it technically, because I know what it means to be recycled, that was not at all a sustainable product. So let's come out from this. Let's be even more freedom. Indeed, what I really call the aesthetic of sustainability is a pluralistic aesthetic for sustainability, or a pluralism of aesthetic of sustainability. You design something that is environmentally sustainable and socio-ethically sustainable, and you are very good, and you have to do it really, and technically, you have to do it very technically sustainable. If not, it doesn't work, okay? So that has to be, full stop. And even in this course, I will be very rigid about that on system level. You have to do it in that way, okay? But then you could do with your aesthetic in your context, with your sensibility, and that could be your way of interpreting the aesthetic. And another person, you could be doing the same typology of product, technically perfect in terms of reducing the environmental impact and enhancing social sustainability, with a different aesthetic that could be your way of interpreting this because it's you, or because you are living in a given context, and so on. So there is not just one. And this is great. It's beautiful. If we have to think that we have to do everything in green, like looking like Panda, and recycle with a surface that is recycled, with a sheet of a board, we don't have freedom to design. Here is to say that there is a lot of freedom for you to design. But here again, I'm saying something, and with this I will be very rigid. The product and the product service system has to be in a technical way. So this you have to know very well. Technically very sustainable, and you have to have the good knowledge, and you have to learn about it, and then be free to make it even the best and the most beautiful, so that it will be reached by everyone. So thank you for the attention and for being here till this time.